Welcome to episode 127. And this time, we're speaking about one of the largest sectors in India, agriculture. Agriculture defines life in India, and agribusinesses are at its beating heart. But it's a story of contradictions and extremes. And our guest today knows this because that's exactly where he's working. He has an interesting take on the divergence in thinking about agriculture in India, the socialist and the capitalist camps. He writes Agribusiness Matters, a newsletter that goes out to over 45,000 subscribers and covers agri-tech developments in smallholding contexts. He hosts State of Agri-Tech town halls on several sector themes. His newsletter reaches agri-tech investors, founders, donors, and development sector professionals across 99 countries. Building a business within this means understanding several layers. He has worn several hats, working in various parts of the agricultural supply chain. But that's probably not the right word to use because agriculture is nowhere near as organized as it needs to be. Venky will tell us about the opportunities and challenges in the sector, which employs the largest number of people in the country. I'm Venugopal Nair, the CEO of Ideascape, and I've been doing this for over 2 years now, helping reaching out to over 125 guests, and each career journey is full of twists, turns, and insights. And one of the things that Venki told me as soon as I approached him is that, do you really want to think of this as a career? So let me bring Venki on stage and start talking with him. Hi, Venki. Wonderful to have you on the show.
Hi Vinu, thanks for doing this. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk about agriculture, and thank you for having me.
Great. So you were born in Mylapore, which is Chennai, which is where I'm from as well. And Mylapore has kind of defined your worldview.
In many fundamental ways, I am a Mylapuran at heart. Be it the influence of culture, be it the influence of spirituality, and also philosophy, and it has shaped my worldview in many ways. At the core root of things, I think I still, I bleed Mylapore in my heart. So yeah.
And I guess that's one of the unusual aspects of Madras. It manages to retain aspects of a village even while it has become a metro. There is a certain. I don't know if that is
Yeah,
true anymore, but I remember when I got here in the 90s, it still seemed to be one of those places which had very clear sort of it.
yeah.
It
I mean, if
respected
you
the
could, and
past as well. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if you could take a critical look, it might sound, it might seem like it's still a conservative place,
Yes.
and it still goes back, harks back to its past. But I think if you know to cherish what is timeless, and if you know to drop the things that are archaic, I think it's always fascinating. So one has to make that you have to plunge into that ocean to actually figure out the difference between the two. Yeah.
Okay. Give me an incident that happened in school that still stays with you.
Uh, my incident that stays with me. I mean, the first thing was that I don't I can visualize right now. The image that strikes me is running to my mom's school from my school when I sort of when I was topping the school in the 10th grade. Today I look at it as a joke because 10th grades. When you grow up, you are told all these fantasy stories about 10th grade being the most influential life of your career, and
Yeah.
so I too believed in those myths. And being a son of a school teacher, I had these, for me it felt like the baptism in fire was to make my teacher mother proud. So I worked my ass off, and as a very diligent first row topper student. And I remember running to my mom's from my school. My school was about 800 meters from my mom's school. So once I got the news that I had topped my 10th grade, I remember running in and running to my mom's school and telling her the news that this is the case. So yeah, I have some of those memories. I also have fond memories of telling a bad pun joke to S.C. Shekhar and winning a poster. Uh, so yeah, I have some diverse memories. I remember uh, singing. I'm also a singer, so I remember singing
Okay.
in there used to be this cultural event called Lepak
Hmm.
in the BSNL office, near to BSNL office, the Doordarshan office. So there
Okay.
we performed with those days. That was the most happening cultural event in town in school days. So I remember singing there a very popular song and winning an award. So yeah, there are a lot of lovely memories that I have about my school days.
Okay. So now let's launch into what we've, this whole thing is about careers in agribusinesses. So, how would you describe this overall sector of agribusinesses?
See, if you really come to the essence of it, agriculture is a sector that is an evergreen sector, right? People's needs for food is not going to go anyway, right? So, and at the same time, it's also one of the oldest sectors, right? Which far precedes the influence of industries and services industry, right?
Right.
So, it has a very lasting spell, and at the same time, it is also continuously evolving. And on to top of it, India is a country where we have 15 agroclimatic zones, which means that diversity is also of a phenomenal kind.
Yeah.
So it's a brilliant. Therefore, it's a it satiates you in many ways. Be it in terms of the wealth opportunities, be it in terms of the diversity, and be it and also in terms of working with some of the incredible farmer community of this country who have been subsidizing our foods for at the cost of their livelihoods.
Yeah.
We tend to take. You go to any market, you can't expect a tomato at 120 rupees, even though that may be the real cost of production producing a tomato, right? Because the farmer has taken a hit in his economics to make it affordable for all of us. So it gives me, so as somebody who works in the sector, it gives me a immense responsibility, therefore, to see in what best can we do to make them also reap the benefits of be it in terms of a good livelihood and good healthy lifestyles that help them live better lives. So yeah, it's an
Okay.
incredible wealth. So there's also a lot of opportunities for fulfillment, and there's also a incredible wealth opportunity, right? You are alluding to it earlier, right? In India is a country where we have about 95% that's informal in agriculture, right? If you really break down the gross value margins, we 94% is still informal, which means whatever in the last 60 years, 70 years of being in the whatever agribusiness that we've built over after independence, they still only have been able to reach 6%.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so
So,
that's also
yeah,
that's
that's
also
crazy.
incredible opportunity out there.
Yeah. And young people typically, when they talk of being in the agricultural uh, sector, it normally is to do with technology, which is, I think, IT has touched agriculture in various ways, or it's been trying to. And I think you did have a brush with technology before your current set of things that you're doing. So, can you take us through how you got into agriculture as your main thing? I mean, I know that at least by reading up your profile, I knew that you had done your engineering in Surat and then you went on to do your MBA. And you told me that it was a farmer turned professor who really built your interest in agriculture. So, can we start from there?
Sure. See, my background and profile is pretty much of any middle class Indian male, right? Back in the 90s, those days FMCG was the hottest career sector that we all aspired for. And I had a very successful cousin, who spent a good amount of time in FMCG sector and rose up the ranks. So I always had visions of getting into the FMCG sector, and you had these traditional middle class ideas of what career meant, what job
Yeah.
meant, good life meant good jobs, good success,
Yeah.
and then you settle down in life. And coming from
Right.
Mylapore, I always had interest in music, so I thought, okay, I will do some things around that. So that was a very well set path that you had in mind. So I was almost going pretty much, sleepwalking my way through that. Sleepwalking might be a bit of a judgment now, but I always said of thought that was the path that I was designed for. And lo and behold, I entered a class in my MBA days where one of my professors was a farmer. He had come to teach a class called B2B marketing, but the class had nothing to do with B or marketing. He said it's a, he had his own way of subverting things. So the class was originally meant to be an exploration of strategy from the lens of a farmer and a nature. Right? If his whole beautiful exploration was that the nature is the world's greatest strategist, because she knows to make sure that she survives and moves along all through whatever experiments we humans do, right? So is there a way to understand therefore strategy from the lens of the nature? So that was the audacious experiment with which he designed the course.
Okay.
So that course kind of blew my mind. It was like those the red pill blue pill moment, and where you sort of pull out from the matrix, you know.
Okay.
So for me, it created a massive impact that made me rethink my career. So I decided that FMCG was not the cut. I was not cut out for that kind of a career, and I decided to build my own career, design my own career. So it took me a while to figure out things, but yeah, I think now I'm in a place where I've been able to design a small bespoke machine of its own design and architecture that runs and does the things all it's supposed to do for my career, and gives me the joy, and while making sure that I get handsomely paid, and it makes me enjoy the work that I do. Yeah.
You drew an interesting parallel when you spoke at a TED talk where you used the analogy of Diwar. And you said that, it's almost like two extremes. There is a socialist mindset among farmers, which is the pre liberalization area in the 90s. And post the 90s and the tech revolution, there's been another community that wants to help farmers, but farmers really don't get that language and what exactly it is that they're trying to do. And I think you're doing an interesting job of being at that junction, saying that, yes, can I be the channel, the semi-permeable membrane through which there is connection and contact, and there is a meeting of minds. So how did you arrive at that over time?
It took a while to explore things. At first I was working in the agri-tech sector. I also had these naive ideas that technology can magically solve all problems. That was the living. That was the yuga dharma, or the living myth that we all live through. Right? You assume that technology has the potent power. It has
All the
powers.
answers.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
has all the answers. So I first experimented with things. I first I put my heart and soul into being a core technologist and tried solving few problems. Then I realized that the problems are much bigger than what technology
What is
can
the
solve.
project you worked on in technology? I just wanted to understand that. From a
No, see,
technology look, what? Yeah.
yeah, see, prior to becoming independent and figuring things on my own, I was working as a product manager in an agri-tech firm. So
Okay.
we had this idea of building a software, a traceability software that could help, in ideal world, that could help farmers reduce the amount of pesticides they use,
Yeah.
and also incentivize them to use minimal pesticides while they're growing food. So that was the original design and idea with which I ventured out, and for me that was the sort of the place where I wanted to test my technology hypothesis. I thought, if I'm able to crack this problem and with technology, then I'm confident that technology can solve problems, right? And I gave my heart and soul to it. It was but what I ended up figuring out was technology has a mind of its own, right? So at the end of the day, what happened was the platform that we were building in, and no offense to the people who are involved in, right? Because at the end of the day, that's how technology is, right? It ended up helping the companies sell more inputs, and it helped sell them more pesticides, and it ended up being co-opted in a way where it ended up helping the companies sell more inputs rather than reduce the amount of inputs.
Okay.
So I felt then, I was a little disillusioned by that then, because that was the time when I felt that technology is not really the answer. So then you started exploring things there. So at one point I figured out that it's this deep dichotomy, or sort of this binary between people who see, we come from a land where food was never sold, transacted in many places, right? Even till day, you go to any part of the India, if you are very honest enough and you say that you're hungry, you will be fed in some temple or in some place. So we came from a culture where food was not transacted there, right? So that is one of the cultures there. So the way people, farmers, had their own ways in which they made money. So they had other skill sets and all of that. So that's a cultural legacy with which we came in, right? So there's a very different understanding of agriculture from that sense. And at the same time, there is a new wave of people who are wanting to solve technology, who see agri purely from a business lens, and then trying to solve problems and see that and imagine that giving farmers better incomes is a better way to solve the problems. So there are these. I saw these two different worlds view that were often colliding and creating a lot of impact. So I could empathize with both worlds, and I could understand the both worlds also slightly better. So I felt that here's an opportunity to kind of see the devil from the God's eyes and see the God from the devil's eyes. And there's no question of who's God or devil, right? Both, at the end of the day, both are
Right.
human creations. But you could still see that, you could see a different vantage point, and I felt I could be this sort of interlocutor who could speak these two different worlds and then build a bridge. So yeah, that's how the exploration has been.
Okay. So, what did you first start doing? You started writing first. What were the kind of things you went out and met people? What was your way into discovering what needed to be done?
Yeah, it involved a lot of travel. So as I said, this mentor that I was talking about, so he taught a course called Science, Technology, and Ecology in another B school while I was doing my MBA in marketing. So I was fascinated by this course that he taught me, so I signed up for that course as well. So at one point of time, I was a student of two B schools, uh, shuttling between two B schools and going to the other school and trying to do a course on ecology and give my grades and everything. So they, because the professor was involved there, so he could get me through to that institute and also give the grades and examination. So it was a fun time. I mean, those are heady days. So a lot of exploration started there. So as a part of that course, we went and visited many farmers, many ambitious reformers, experimenters who tried newer ways to change agriculture. So I also met one of the some of the incredible people who've done experiments on land, who experiments on farming. Like I met one of the persons who published a very landmark book called One Straw Revolution in India. Pratap Agarwal ji was the first person who sort of in the early 70s and 90s who saw the organic wave, and he had invited Masano Fukuoka, who was one of the founding fathers of organic farming. So he invited him to India in the 90s, and then they published his book, his sort of the Bible of organic farming, the book called One Straw Revolution. So he published that in India. So I got to meet Pratap ji and spend time with him. I also got to meet a lot of people who have been working in the rural India. So there were a lot of travels and stuff. So, and when I quit job, it was largely, it was like walking in the forest. You see certain sights, the sounds, you see what is working, where is light, and you started moving around in the dark. So it was pretty much moving around in the dark, figuring things out. I experimented, I made mistakes. And all the same time, I had to make sure that now my survival was there. So I had to do projects, figure things out. So it was a long, circumlocutor's journey that took me to all kinds of places. And then,
Okay.
yeah, now it helped me figure out things in a certain way and design a certain model around that.
Great. Okay. So, I'm speaking to Venky Ramachandran about a career in agribusinesses. And in the first part, we spoke about how he got interested in agriculture. He how his understanding of agriculture improved, and how he got into it full time after first graduating in engineering and moving out from Mylapore to Surat. In the next segment, I'll be speaking to him about specific things that uh, the milestones that defined his career, and how he understood that this is what needed to be done. He just spoke about how he got introduced to uh, a person who really is one of the founders of organic farming in India, going all the way back to the 1970s. So let me bring Venky back and then talk to him about what were the next steps in the journey. If you've liked what you've listened to so far, please share, subscribe, and let people know. And the objective of this particular episode is to show that it need not be technology alone that draws you into agriculture. There is so much more that can be done. So, Venki, what were the kind of things that, do you have a specific milestone, or do you think that it kind of just evolved? The picture sort of evolved over time.
Yeah, I didn't have a very clear roadmap at the start of the journey. I took up whatever projects that came my way and talked to people that came my way, and whether I felt there was some glimmer
Give
of
me a
truth.
couple of projects that you worked on in the interim. Let's say what you did. Was it you know, what are the
No,
kind
I
of
mean,
things
I
that
did
you?
consulting projects. So initially, I worked with a lot
Okay.
of founders. I also burnt my own money. I invested in few agri-tech companies in the early days.
Okay.
I thought, I would be this hotshot consultant who would invest into companies and become a big investor. Then I realized that being investor is not my cup of tea. So I was also an agri-tech consultant. So I was working with a lot of agri-tech companies in India. I also worked with a few companies in the Latin markets, in Guatemala and in Colombia. I did a lot of work with some of the companies there, some of them who've now grown up and scaled rapidly in their markets. So I was doing all kinds of projects. And at the same time, I thought of, I love writing, and writing has always been a passion. And so I thought maybe, my explorations and journeys could further be, taken at much bigger level if I start writing with the world. And I was always inspired by Gandhi. Gandhi has been a big inspiration for me in the, like if you see, he has traveled more than 30,000 kilometers in the country. So and if you really look at that, it's almost the length and breadth of the country in many ways, and has done a lot of travels. So I was always inspired to see, can I keep traveling and figure out things, where is happening there. So I decided to create a newsletter where I would just share it as a diary of what all I'm exploring and things. And believed, and I was naive enough to believe that people would pay that for that. And interestingly, that turned out to be true. People are very happy to pay for my explorations. And I wasn't writing for them, I was writing for me. So I was writing for myself to see what are the learnings and there, and slowly, a community started building around it. A lot of
So give me
entrepreneurs
a couple
started
of
coming.
stories about your newsletter. Let's say what you would pick on. You went to Guatemala. So what was it like living with the farmers there, or trying to figure out what their challenges were?
There, it's a very different country. You have these latifundia sort of models where you have these large estates and massive amounts of, like today in India we have small holding farmers. Right? There you have large holding farmers who have farmers, dealers who have large land acres. What I found surprising was they were fully aware of what India, the technological ways that are happening in India, and so they're very eager to learn from India's experience. So I was invited to do this project because they thought that they could learn from India's experience, and we built platforms and applications for that market there. So like for instance, in the case of fertilizers, they were far ahead in terms of giving the right set of fertilizer for farmers based on what the soil needs. Whereas in India, we haven't figured out those things out yet. So they were advanced in few things, but they were not yet advanced in the digital technologies. So they were learning in from there. So yeah, those are the kind of projects I did, and I also started working with investors in the ecosystem. We did some projects and started working with a lot of agri-tech founders also. So I do some kind of a sparring business where whenever a founder used to work, wants to come up with a new idea there, he would spar the idea with me and I would challenge his assumptions. And so I started doing those kind of coaching work also with a lot of founders. Eventually, I came to build a community of agri entrepreneurs. So today, I run and manage a community of 300 plus agri entrepreneurs in India, who are all very passionate about impact. And so we've been also hosting a lot of retreats. At one point, I felt that entrepreneurs also need a safe space to talk about the challenges they grapple, and that could also strengthen the community, because the community has a better chance at solving complex problems rather than a corporation. So that led to creating a lot of these communities there. So, and I said, whenever I go to different parts of the country, I met a lot of founders, and I started hosting agripreneur meetups, where founders who are working on these complex problems would come, they share their struggles, so somebody else would help them in. So a community vibe sort of coming in. So today the community vibe is very active, and wherever I go in various parts of the country, I host these meetups. And so I was in Madurai, as I said the other day, and day before yesterday we had a Madurai agripreneur meet, and a lot of founders came in from very far places, and they shared their journeys and there. So yeah, that's sort of been, there's been all kinds of diversity in this whole exploration. So but I think it has helped me figure out where is the impact need, how do you push the needle to impact, and help me get a certain clarity around what are the kind of problems that are worth solving in the Indian agriculture.
How do you figure out what the subject for these seminars are? Is it from feedback from the market? Is it what founders themselves? So let's say if you were to organize a 1 day program, what is the basis on which you develop? Give me, okay, whatever you did in Madurai, what is that about?
No, so in Madurai, we did I invite the local entrepreneurs who are working in agriculture in that region. So when you go there, I do these pretty much without an agenda per se. It's a safe space for entrepreneurs to come and share the challenges there. Once they
Okay.
share challenges and they share honestly what they're working on, their challenges there, somebody else has a solution or somebody else has a perspective, and they become a part of the community, where the community is also now willing to support them and hold them in. So that's what happens typically. So I generally don't come in with a preset agenda saying I'm going to do this, I'm going to there, because we are all today we are living in a very agenda driven world. When everybody wants an agenda, everyone wants to push an agenda. So I
Okay.
feel that incredible things happen when you actually hold a space without an agenda.
Wonderful. That's so inspiring, Venki. So let's say you were one of the few people, or maybe a few people along with you got inspired by this course that you took at the MBA. Were you one of the few that got into agriculture, or were there other people who followed your path that did a different thing altogether? I'm asking because I want to understand what kind of people will find the most satisfaction if they get into agriculture and begin to consider this as a career.
No, they were very, and from my batch, as I said, we were a group of marketing students. So for them to get into agriculture was a very far off shot. So I do have some friends who
Okay.
came in for different reasons, who entered in agriculture for different reasons. For me, my reason was, a certain sense of deep sense of satisfaction of actually creating impact on the ground,
Okay.
seeing visibly, perceptively, in what ways your work is transforming people around. Helping change the needle in terms of how people engage with agriculture and farmers, how people see the agriculture. So yeah, there were, from the course that I took up in my college, there was almost a small group following of who were very inspired by this professor, who started dabbling in very diverse things. So one of them actually became one of the India's, he revived this old fabric called jajam in Rajasthan. So,
Okay.
he's a very dear friend of mine. So he took up a entirely pathway in sort of reviving old fabrics. So he won the national award for the documentary that he made on rediscovering Jajam. So today he is just rediscovering an entirely new path there. So it's been largely personal experiments. These are largely personal experiments that you've done, you figured out on your own life, right? So I don't think these are like models or formulas for everyone to follow. It has to be a deeply personal journey where you figure a few things out, and then based on those learnings you take your next steps up. So but doing that deeply nourishes you because it gives you the clear sense of why you're doing things, and that it keeps you grounded in terms of what needs to be done, and you're also continuously learning, right? Because see, for me, this kind of exploration taught me lot of difference between learning and training, right? For the first 20 years of my school career, college, whatever you call it, right, you're only taught to train, right? You're not taught to learn. So even understanding the difference between training and learning, right, I think took a lot of time to figure things out. So it gave me a certain mind map, or I would say a mental model to figure things out, and then do my own explorations of this kind. Yeah.
Okay. So, what were your conversations with farmers like? What are the kind of things you explored, and what is it that you remember from some of those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty. Some of the farmers, like I remember having going to this place in Eastern UP, where the livelihoods of farmers are pretty much in very bad shape. And there, when you go in, right, like, that's the difference you see. Like, you tend to imagine and assume that you will see this hapless farmer and who's, in a certain stage, because you think that he doesn't have, you have these ideas in your head. But that man, I was going to this place, and I was told that the what fluoride content is so high, so you should not probably drink anything. The people who were traveling with me, but I went in, and he has offered me a water, and he offered me food, and we went and ate and chatted, and you see that their worldview is completely different. Right? They're not they're see you especially for urbanites, we tend to confuse between material poverty and poverty, right? Who are we to say they are poor, or they are in poverty? They may be having material poverty in the way we see things, but their life is of a very different kind, working in the soil, staying close to the roots and the ground, and it's a very so you when you whenever I go to meet farmers, I feel completely inspired. And of course, I'm not romanticizing this, right? There are all kinds of problems they are stuck in. They are, it's a pretty miserable economic existence if you just look at it, because a lot of the support systems that were there for farmers have now vanished, right? So they need, even for earlier, farmers used to grow their own vegetables. Today, you see, most of them tend to buy vegetables, like all of us urbanites, and they tend to buy vegetables from their fellow farmers, or from the markets that they are in. So a lot of things have shifted there, but when you go and meet farmers, there is a certain relationship with the soil, with the land, and with the way they do things, that touches me at a very deep level.
Okay. Now, you build these communities through your newsletter, and you have your traveling, which gets across. So it is not a conventional career by any means, because you're not working to a certain clock and saying that I need to achieve this by this time. So in your mind, how far ahead do you plan? Is it the next 1 month? Is it the next couple of months? Or is it something that just arises? A person calls you and then you go there and things happen. How does it work?
I do make some plans for a few months ahead, and
Okay.
I do consulting projects that where right now I'm working with one of the projects, which is where we are building a, you must be familiar with UPI, right? So the
Yeah.
same underlying technology behind UPI, we are now building a open network for in agriculture. So what if the UPI's principles were to be applied in agriculture? So we are building
Oh,
a open network around that. So that has been a project that's been going on for a while, and we are launching that in the month of June, end of June. So that is a project that I do there. So see, it's a bit of a what do I say? It's a portfolio kind of an approach, right? I do multiple things. and there is enough diversity in it, so I get a sense of where things are ahead, and then I have to keep reinventing yourself at that, right? It's a job that it is where you don't have a very long term plans, but you do have short term plans, and you know what next few things that you're going to experiment and try. But yeah, it's not a conventional path by any chance. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So the principles of UPI, that's pretty interesting because that is a payment system that's really transformed India. It
Correct, correct.
started out with saying that okay, if all the banks were to work together and if reconciliation happened faster and the several payment systems were all converged into one. So are you saying that you've actually managed to find something that can cut across a very large section of the systems which currently exists, and you see a meeting point almost like a Venn diagram where multiple circles and there's one little place where you can operate and get this whole thing done?
Yeah, see, we've been building this open network called Unified Krishna Interface.
Okay.
It's a sort of an open network that we launched in Nasik. Now it is scaled to about 2,000 transactions, and there's a good chunk of farmers who are a part of the network. So there, the idea is, see, today farmers are, for all the kind of amount of farmers we have in this country, they all farm local clusters, right? But those local clusters, they're very much locked in their own silos of also of many kinds. So through digital technologies, we enable solutions and services that helps them transcend these silos, right? Like for instance, if a
Okay.
farmer is only typically used to buying his inputs from his traditional retailer shop that is near his in his village, we give them opportunities for them to discover more players in the network, right? So like today, like that's the whole premise in the UPI also, right? Like you have one protocol, but that protocol enables you to transact with different banks. You don't have to worry about I make a transaction and I have to be join take another bank account or anything, right? You just do with the UPI, you're able to scan it anywhere and you're done, right? We are trying to bring that kind of a decentralized, low friction commerce approach. So these are, yeah, it's a very audacious aim, and agriculture is extremely complex. So we are thinking in 20-year term, and hopefully,
Okay.
by in 20 years, I'm confident that these kind of initiatives will create a massive dent in transforming the economic livelihoods and opportunities for farmers.
Okay. Great. So I'm talking to Venky Ramachandran, and in the previous segment, we spoke about how his awakening in agriculture was the result of several travels and consulting projects that he undertook in various parts of the country as well as abroad, and his love for writing, which is where his blog began to attract a fair number of people, and how he's gone about building a community which is now interlocked. And one of the things that I really remember is when I asked him for what do you speak about, he says, not everything has to begin with an agenda, which is profound. Because in today's world, I think everything is about clockwork precision and getting things done. And I think he understands that if you're approaching a problem as big as this, you don't attack specific things based on what you think. You bring people together, and then that discussion with founders and the people that they interact with begins to reveal the way forward. And he's just spoken about how this interesting experiment about aligning agricultural issues, the way India's payment system has been structured, which is UPI, uh, offers one of the ways forward for farmers to see a much wider cross section of people that can access and businesses that can access for various parts of whatever they do. In the next section, the final section, I'll be speaking to him about where he sees this going and how the early founders have actually now transitioned into something else in agriculture. So if you're looking at joining one of the startups, I think the whole point is you don't have to have a plan for that particular thing. Start somewhere and then see where it goes, because that's exactly what Venky's done and it served him very well. So, Venki, I think I remember that e-Chopal was one of the early sort of things that came in, the digitization sort of experiment. which I think once the internet came in, it just kind of, because their ITC had it for a very specific purpose. They were looking at tobacco. But what do you see, from the early days to what is there today? What is the next phase of how technology will help agriculture? And where do you see the green shoots emerging?
Yeah, see, green shoots are emerging in many, many ways, right? It's not just about technology, also, right? Today, as I said, there is literally a 95% that is an informal beast that is sitting in, right?
Right.
So if you were to really look at today, right? Today, what are the common needs that people have, right? People are very concerned about the quality of the food. People don't have lost trust in their food, that you can see that in the the kind of discussions we have about nutrition and health. So people are very, very eager to eat healthy food, right? India is now becoming an obese nation. Our obesity rate is now almost same as Brazil's obesity rate. So we are in times where people really want safe food and healthy food that they can trust on, rely on, because they know that you can't. There's no way you can. If I have to show you two onions and say this is organic and this is probably not organic, you can't distinguish this by seeing it, right? So,
Yeah.
but as you learn, but so then that means that there has to be a certain process in which you trust and you see how the food, what kind of food that you're growing in. So there are incredible opportunities to grow food, good food, that farmers are really want, right? Like the transition towards organic and natural or regenerative, whatever term you want to use, that's a big opportunity, green shoot, that I see, right? Because people are really fed up of eating foods that, and people have lost the trust to food, for the food also, right? You don't you and in today's times, when farmers are also desperate, the desperation increases the need to save the crops, and so that increases the amount of pesticides you put in the crop, right? So there are those opportunities there. And then you have opportunities to create brands, right? Like for instance, today you go to a supermarket, you will see apples all around the corner, but majority of the apples come from abroad, right? Our Kashmiri apples we have not focused, invested enough in the infrastructure to make Kashmiri apples the center stone and for to export across the country, right? But likewise, you take it for any other, right? You say pomegranate, or you take, let's say, muskmelon. Now there are incredible opportunities to just focus on one crop, one fruit, let's say, and give world class fruits. You have to go back, right? You have to go back to the seed, and you have to go back to practices that you follow, and help farmers to grow healthy crops, tasty, good fruits, and then you can brand them, and then you can sell it to the markets, and you can get a very good premium there. So there are incredible opportunities across every commodity, right? From rice to, we are deficient in pulses, right? We've been importing a lot of our pulses, the tur dal and the arhad and the moong dal. Uh, we import them from Tanzania, we import from Brazil. So there's a lot of opportunities now. The government also is incentivizing farmers to grow their own pulses, right? The place where I live in, Telangana, was once a hotbed of, was once suited to grow pulses, but now we are ending up overproducing rice. That's the problem also in India. So we want farmers to grow a good amount of pulses that will make us self-sufficient. We don't have to, because after COVID, we are seeing the importance of self-sufficiency. So there are a lot of, I mean, I can go on and on about this, but there are incredible amount of opportunities for farmers, and there are also now newer opportunities that farmers can connect with urban consumers. Right today, I'm happy to pay a monthly premium to a particular farmer who is growing the food that I would love to eat. Right. So imagine you
Yes.
connect. We are our first one person is the more richer lot of this country, and if they can find the right set of farmers who they can also provide them maybe an advance or give them a certain premium, right? They can grow the good food that you would love to eat. And in US, therefore, you see that. So there's also a lot of these prosumer markets, right? The producer and consumer merge together. You help their life, and they will help your life, right? You make sure that their livelihoods are well taken, and they will make sure that you eat healthy food. So I think a lot of us, there's incredible opportunities that you can think of when you start to see where are the green shoots are. And I think it's a great time now to be in Indian agriculture, especially when the challenges are so huge.
I remember a friend telling me recently that, two young people have built a huge market for eggs in the country because they see how, branded eggs. And that has really scaled, and in a matter of 4 5 years they've reached some insane valuation. So it's just
Yeah.
like solving a problem on the ground, which can really help to take extract a lot of wealth that is available for the taking, provided you understand where you've got to work and what are the things that you have to build, what is the infrastructure. And this came to me in a different light altogether when I was go to Kotagiri, and there's this person called Dharmalingam Venugopal, who's a journalist as well, and he has helped to develop, say, the Save Nilgiris kind of project that he's been working on for decades now. So he was saying in the 90s, the bottom collapsed of the tea market, and the government drafted him because they wanted him to talk to all the tea growers in the Nilgiris, because he had this whole history of where it came from and how we built those. And one of the pieces of advice he gave them was precisely what you told me now. He says, build your own brand. The problem is you've been selling it as a commodity. And so the moment the market crashes, you crash as well. But if you build the brand, and today there are 40, 50 brands in Kotagiri alone. So
Mm.
obviously there is a huge need for things to move from uh, commodity to branded, which is what has happened with rice flour, I mean, wheat, and all of these, because there are now huge brands in those by the multinationals. And like you said, there is a huge need to bring this. That's one way of ensuring that people understand quality, because a brand means that I'm standardizing something and there is a certain value that I'm delivering, which is precisely what can drive. What are the examples that you have seen of people having made the transition in a commodity, in a market?
Like, see, the contrast is, for what you said in Kotagiri, right? You see what's happening in Darjeeling. Darjeeling tea market has collapsed massively. And now you see only few experiments there. There are few brands that have been able to transition and help farmers to transition towards more regenerative practices there. And so you see certain brands that are there. There is Dorabji Teas that is there in Darjeeling, which is a fairly known brand. Similarly, there are farmers now. There are a lot of farmers who you look at what has happened in Timbaktu Collective. Timbaktu Collective is a small collective that's near Chennakotapalli on way from Hyderabad to Bangalore. If you travel down, you'll see this. And this is a small, arid, water scarce region where farmers together, this incredible community work done by this person called Bablu Anguli. So they both are a couple, who I was talking about this book, right? Masanobu Fukuoka's book. They took that
Right.
book and landed up at that place in 90s, and they created. Now they've impacted the lives of 10,000 farmers in that region.
Wow.
To me, it's a great story of impact that can be pursued, and you create deep sense. Now the 10,000 farmers, now their lives are transformed. They have schools. They have their own financing mechanisms. They have actually now said, government, don't give us subsidy. They've returned back the subsidy to the government, the entire village.
Okay.
So you can create that kind of impact in, once you are able to design these systems. So to me, that is like the kind of inspiration that I really look up to, where, like, today, in today's technology terms, we all think in big numbers, right? Like, for him to create, like, as I said, from 90s to 2025, about what, about 25, 30 years, 35 years of impact, he's been able to impact the lives of 10,000 farmers. That's a huge
Right.
number, right? But the reason I'm giving these numbers is also, we tend to, in today's technological world, we all tend to think in lakhs and millions. But I think if you
Yes.
want to create deep impact, the numbers will get smaller.
Very
You know?
true. Very true.
So
And
you'll,
that's
but
the
that's
point
also,
where it
that's where the
starts.
real focus is there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you also think, Venki, that it involves a certain mindset? Because people have these preconceived notions about what it means to live in a village, and they think that they will not have the same social life. They think that they will not meet people they can have conversations with. What are the things that you think are holding people back? Is it simply ignorance, or is it an unwillingness to say that I will take on something which is unusual?
No, it's not a path for everyone. So I'm not prescribing this path for everyone. Right? It takes a certain kind of passion to to go back to a village and say, I will rethink this. I mean, see, in India, that's where you need to also understand the legacy of philosophical traditions and the legacy we've had. We've had a culture of Gandhians, right? Even, I mean, I was just, day before yesterday, I was at the Gandhi Institute, right? So Gandhi's influence is still vibrant and thriving in today after so many years after he's passed away. Right, so you have,
Right.
so the people who, so there is a legacy of people who are very inspired by the ideals that, like, I mean, I was just yesterday I was meeting this I mean, here is Vinoba Bhave. I met one of the persons who met Vinoba Bhave in '69 and created an incredible institution in Madurai, where in India we had this Bhoodan movement, and this Bhoodan movement
Yeah.
created, imagine Bhoodan movement is like this movement. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where landless laborers, they got land for free from the zamindars, erstwhile zamindars. So this was like an imagine, and today if you really look at the numbers, land equivalent to Scotland, the entirety of Scotland was given away for free to
Wow.
farmers in this country.
Wow. Amazing.
So we have a rich legacy of people who currents of philosophical and traditions that urge people to go beyond just creating value for your own life. There, right? You want to give back to the society and community. So we love to tap into those rivers to kind of pursue these kind of paths. So there is, it's not for everyone. So therefore, today we are in times where farmers think that only if you come to city, your life is great, right? But but at the same time, like, you go, and now some wise farmers today, you go to any village, one or two farmers will say that I'm going to pursue, let's say, organic or regenerative, and then design my life around it and do things there. But it's still a very minute chunk of people. Right? You see the lands for in India, 1% of the land is about regenerative or organic or whatever you want to call it. So out of 99%, it's only 1% who are now able to see this thing. So eventually, I feel this will grow, and as awareness about health increases, and we will move this kind of make this transition.
So there is this need to make agriculture a lot more. I hate to use the word efficient because that seems to be the kind of conversations that people have. How can we increase the value per acre? How can we increase the amount of you know money that is generated? But do you think those are the ways forward, or do you also think, have you seen unusual experiments with how land is used, which has transformed areas?
There are incredible experiments that have gone through in this country. Lands have been given, as I said, right? You see, one way to see the first thing in efficiency is you need to differentiate between what is a farm and a factory, right?
Okay.
Uh, the difference between a farm and a factory is, in factory you can go for economies of scale. Whereas if you replicate the same factory's principles in a farm, you end up exploiting the entire core capital,
Okay.
right? So that is the fundamental aspect that one needs to understand. Right? Today, many people do confuse the shit out of between a farm and a factory. So I think farm has its own principles of nature, organizing principles, like the whole process of how nature replenishes itself, right? And what are the principles that make sure that if you're growing food, if you're growing, let's say, a soil, right, and you're continuously depleting the nutrients, then the soil is going to get barren, right? So
Yeah.
how do you make sure that the nutrients go back to the soil, right? And that is the cycle that you need to work through to understand. So it takes a lot of time to figure these things out. So today there are models, like there's companies like Akshay Kalpa that have helped farmers do the transition. And then figured out a model where they can also, like, today they are at 200 crore. So they have been able to help farmers, and they've reached out about 1,500 farmers now. And they are able to help them move to organic farming, and then reward them handsomely because of the D2C wave, right? Consumers can order in their phones, and you can go, so that is one of the examples that are there. There are similarly plenty of other examples where farmers have been able to sort of transition, and you see, go to any part of the country, you will see these small non-profits who are working with the farmers, helping them transition. So there are plenty of grassroots examples in the country, and one has to
It
go
can
to
be.
those places to figure out. That's one of the reasons that prompts me to travel also, because it pushes my mind, expands my mind of the possibilities when I travel.
Yeah, that's such a wonderful thing that you're doing, Venki. That you're simply going and talking to people, visiting places, seeing things on the ground, which is where this whole thing comes in from. And today, technology, the problem is everyone assumes that a browser is all you need and open up a tab and you can go somewhere. But the hassle is that that is limited to whatever happens within that particular field. So, when you said this is not for everyone, who is it for? A career in agribusiness where you want to sort of explore, is it for people who don't want a regular daily routine? Is it for people who are willing to take the rough with the smooth? Is it for people who see that they can do something but are not very clear about what they want to achieve?
See, uh, every person has their own appetite and hunger for meaning, right? Some people are very happy if they are able to only contribute to a nice non-profit and work as a volunteer in some institution in the weekends. And they're very happy with their lives. And while they work in the tech and whatever, right? And I'm not criticizing or judging anything. Each of them have their own appetite for meaning, right? I realized for myself that my hunger for appetite for meaning was huge. And I had to find things that will make me feel satiated and feel grounded. So it depends on the individual's heart. But what I've seen is people who work in this sector are very philosophical, are the kind of people who are consumed by larger questions of life, consumed by the fundamental inequalities that we see in our everyday midst. Very bothered by inequity and the adharma that happens in many things of life. So you have that kind of urge and instinct that you feel like this is not right, then you want to work in those things, right? That if you don't have that angst, if you're only wanting to see that I can get a 20x growth in agriculture, then I want, let me then come in, that's not the place there. You will really get burnt out, and I know so many people who burnt out and they had there. So you need to have something more than, I mean, you will make money, okay, this is not to make a saint or a sinner or anything of that sort. You'll make a lot of money if you invest yourself in the right way, but it's a journey. It's a 20-year journey, right? Even for a today in AI times that we live today, right? I can create a company with an app I can ask ChatGPT to create an app, launch it in Play Store, and then make money immediately the next day and make a huge money. But that doesn't happen in agriculture. Agriculture is still seasonal. Seasons come up play, rain influences. So there are so many variable factors that are beyond your control, within your control. And on top of it, you have governments trying to control you. And then it's also a geopolitical issue. So there are variables are so huge. So you need to have a certain wiring that makes you chase problems that are big, right? But let me tell you the benefits of that, right? It first, the thing is, when you chase these kind of problems, your the way you see the world changes, right? And especially when you work with nature, you start to appreciate the seasons of life. You start to appreciate the cycles of life, things that we typically take for granted, right? Today, like I grew up where visiting my grandfather's farms and their rural houses today, but my son doesn't have that opportunity. Right, I have to go and find them and take them to a farm, and I do that out there. But so you get a different kind of life. So most of my friends who are in agribusiness, they enjoy being in the farm. So I wanted to be a farmer, but then for some reason I couldn't work out. So I figured out a career where I could live a life in rural whenever I want and come back to the city and also enjoy the urban comforts. So for me, it was the
Great.
best of both worlds. So that was what I thought it will work for everyone else. Yeah, I mean, it's not for
Fabulous,
everyone,
Venki.
but if you have a passion, you can work it out.
Great. I'm sorry we must leave it there, but it's been fascinating talking to you. And thank you very much for agreeing to be a part of this. I'll
Pleasure
have
is
to
mine.
leave
Thank you.
it there. Thank you.